isn't the first time American Horror Story has pulled from real life. American Horror Story frequently pulls from actual American history. It's part of the show's brilliance. In the past, the show has featured and adapted storylines from some very real murder cases. Murder House paid homage to the Black Dahlia murder, the 1947 homicide of aspiring actress Elizabeth Short. The nurses in Murder House were also inspired by the Richard Speck Massacre, a 1966 incident where a man broke into a Chicago nursing dorm and tortured, raped, and killed 8 of the nurses who resided there. Additionally, the Axeman of New Orleans in Coven was a real murderer. Twisty the Clown is a nod to John Wayne Gacy Jr. In Freak Show, and almost every murderer represented in Hotel was either real or inspired by a real murderer. A distinguished criminal justice professional changed his stance on the theory. Though the FBI and state police do not accept this theory as a possibility, some scholars do think the evidence presented by Duarte and Gannon has significant merit. Originally, a highly revered criminal justice professor who worked at a university in Minnesota believed that the theory was a sham, an urban legend. He later changed his mind after viewing more evidence. If such a scholar, one who specializes in these sorts of cases, can change his mind, others may eventually come around as well. If the theory is true, the killers are still out there. Only 2 of the deaths were ruled homicide, but the coincidences are overwhelming. The Smiley Face Killers in American Horror Story are pretty slick. They managed to make some of their murders look like homicides or accidents. This is the entire basis of the real-life Smiley Face Murder Theory. Only 2 of these murders were ever ruled an actual homicide, but due that many college-aged men really accidentally fall into water and die, there's no evidence that this was serial crime, but it's suspicious. Detectives believed the reason these bodies ended up in water was because the killers knew it would wash away evidence. Not to mention Chris Jenkins was allegedly found with a fistful of human hair. Who did he pull it from? Skeptics believe the Smiley Face Murder Theory has some key holes. One of the biggest holes in the Smiley Face Murder Theory is that none of the smiley faces were the same. It was almost as if they were painted by completely different people. In addition, smiley faces are pretty popular in graffiti, especially because they are easy to paint. It's pretty safe to say that in any heavily vandalized area, there's probably at least one smiley face. This is a key fact because the murders showed no pattern to how close these smiley faces were to where the bodies turned up. Sometimes the smiley faces were close to the scene of the murder, and other times they were simply within the city limits. Who can't find a single smiley face spray painted somewhere in a city? One man confessed to murder, and his story is eerily similar to Alleges. Gannon and Duarte still believe that the Smiley Face Killers are out there, and this is largely because of reports of an inmate who confessed. In 2007, an inmate serving time for murder said he was the founder of Dealers of Death, a criminal organization that sounds pretty similar to the clown cult. The inmate alleged that the group was responsible for 40 murders. The inmate refused to take a polygraph test. Hardly any of the murders showed physical signs of trauma. Mysterious detail in the Smiley Face Murder Theory is that none of the actual murders showed any signs of trauma, though victims were alleged to have been tortured for hours. The Center for Homicide Research believes believes this discredits some of detectives' theory because victims of torture usually do have visible signs of trauma. There was only evidence of trauma present in the case of Patrick McNeil, but he was one of the few who was killed before his body was dumped. For this reason, most of the cases were dubbed accidental drownings. If you look at American Horror Story so far, one of the cases involved a similar idea. A couple is buried alive in living room caskets rather than murdered in some violent way. Though this was certainly torture, there would only be evidence of a struggle, not trauma, like a crack over the head or a stab wound. The word Sinsiniwa was found at one of the crime scenes. The word Sinsiniwa was found at one of the crime scenes. The murders are believed to have been committed in the same gruesome way. The murders are believed to have been committed in the same gruesome way. The Smiley Face Murder Theory alleges a group or cult may be at the helm. Though it was initially believed that this string of murders came from the same killer, as of 2008, Gannon and Duarte insisted there had to be more people involved. Can you say murder cult? Okay, so Gannon and Duarte never said it was a cult per se, but they do believe people are working together across different states. There's such a wide range of states the killings are through. Besides the fact that we have multiple victims on the same night. A graffiti smiley face was found at almost every crime scene. Just as the murderous cult in American Horror Story paints smiley faces on the doors, windows, or walls of their murder scenes, the real-life Smiley Face Killers marked their territory. Over 22 smiley faces cropped up in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Iowa, proving the murders were a whole lot more widespread than the killing spree in American Horror Story. In the real-life case, the size and color of the faces were always different, unlike the smileys in AHS, which are always red barring the initial face Kai drew in steam on the window at the gym. Despite the small differences, Gannon and Duarte still believed it all came from the same group of killers. The only thing more AHS would be clown masks. The disappearance of Chris Jenkins led to the theory. In 2003, University of Minnesota student Chris Jenkins disappeared and was found dead 4 months later floating in the Mississippi River. Though police initially thought Jenkins accidentally drowned, stereotyping drunk college kids, detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte knew better. The pair had been studying a string of mysterious deaths of college-aged men across the country the better part of a decade. It started with Patrick McNeil, who drowned in New York City in 1997. The trail eventually led them to Jenkins, whose body position and a wealth of physical evidence proved the student's death wasn't an accident. There were upwards of 40 alleged victims, all who appeared to have accidentally drowned.
Hey guys, thank you so much for the support and like and comment down below, and also thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to see you in the next video. Then take care, bye.